Discretionary Response Fund on page 81.
I'm happy to move them, the recommendations.
Second.
Yep. Seconded Aaron.
I'm going to ask a question.
Yeah, you can ask a question of someone.
Come to a table now.
Right. Hi guys. Right. Beth, did you want to ask a question?
Yeah, no, so it was just about the grant towards Kingdom, and I think I saw a memo about comparing it to budget services, and whether this should really be a central government funded service around people's specific budgets, or is this something that council always does fund?
This is an MSD funded service, and the bulk of the income does come from MSD. It has been funded by council over time. It has commonly been $40,000 a year. The last grant that went to this organisation had been reduced to $35,000.
Yeah, I mean, I should say that I was a budget services advisor for 6 years. And it's just another one of these things that the MSD should be funding and funding properly, and then it kind of falls.
Are we into debate or?
Huh?
No, he's in questions at the moment.
Want,
No, you can debate it later,
No.
but just
Okay,
questions
thanks.
at the moment. Are there any other questions? Jimmy and then Yanni. Nan?
I just want to know what's staff any criteria, distinguish between the priority 1 and priority 2, etc., regarding the grant funding. Because I reviewed the World Christchurch, it looks like they participate for 18,000 people, create good image to the city. They apply for $25,000, but we grant 20,000. So what's the rationale? Why what's the rationale? We cannot fully amount to grant the funding.
It was made a priority 2. I have it as a priority 2. I don't know, I'm sorry, we can't answer that at the moment.
Amendment 25, full amount, yes. 18,000 people come to Christchurch, yes.
the word.
Amend the word. The 25? Yeah, 85.
I guess it's a wee bit following on from what Jimmy said, but I am interested in why the reduction in the money given to Kingdom resources. What it seems to provide an amazing service. It doesn't just support people in debt, but it also trains people. So it's not just, and I know that they're very well established, and I'm just wondering what the general rationale was in reducing that funding.
I think probably we'll start with saying that Jay, who's talking to Kingdom today, didn't actually do the assessment. The person that's left has left. From what I understood, when he did the assessment, he wanted to direct the funding towards the wages for the organisation rather than the rent. So that was why he made the $20,000 recommendation.
Yeah, I was just, thank you for getting the answer to the question about the service that was being reduced. Or my understanding that service is still going, and a bit like the question that Raf raised, but my understanding is central government has actually made funding provision for budget advice services. So I'm just sort of still trying to understand why we would be funding this, given that it's a central government thing that's core funded.
Again, it was my understanding from the staff assessment that was made is that the contribution of council funding was for the overflow of what was already funded from government funding. So this is an additional, the extra people that have come into the service over this time. I think there's been a 22% increase, which wasn't included in the MSD funding. They also have said that there's been an increased need that they've seen with those people, not just for budget advice, but around mental health issues and things like that, which they are trying to direct into other services, but some of this work they still have to manage themselves. So this is for that extra work that they're doing on top that's not being met by the government.
Do we have like a map of like where budget advisory services are in Christchurch and which communities they're working with?
I don't know that we have that, but it's something that we could certainly supply.
I just wonder whether there's a bigger strategic question about budgeting advice and who's delivering it and how whether if we're going to fund it, like on what grounds we would fund it, rather than our central government.
This came up at the Mayor's Welfare Fund yesterday, didn't it, Ben? And that all of the agencies were reporting a hugely busy January and February, including the Mayor's Welfare Fund, which has spent a huge amount of money and is having to cut back. There are Kingdom Resources Trust, Salvation Army, Methodists, Budget Advice, and there was one other, a City Mission, who all offer budgetary services. Some of them part-time, some of them on an occasional basis, but all of them are getting huge demand. Quite often when they're referred there are a lot of issues. So what they were also finding is a lot of people not on benefits coming through. I think one of the issues that we find with the Mayor's Welfare Fund is that by the time people get to us, they've got $2,500, $3,000 worth of debt, and our usual donation or payment of, not donation, but payment of some bill is around $300 to $500. So there's still issues. I don't think Christchurch is dealing with a whole pile of the issues. In fact, what we've asked is that we've asked Paul Dalziel to come and talk to us about the whole economic shift that's happening here, because you saw it in that housing report that far fewer people now own their own house, so the volatility of renting and the lack of equity in any sort of secure abode makes huge issues for all sorts of families, not just the families that you may think that you would get. So I don't think there is a surplus of budget advice service in the city at the moment. In fact, we know there's not. Yeah, Phil.
So I'm happy to speak to support this strongly. Clearly, you know, the whole purpose of Kingdom...
just before you do...
well, others here.
Oh, okay. I'll put them separately then so we can have Jimmy's amendment. Sorry, Phil, for interrupting.
Okay, happy to agree with Jim.
Phil, just before you do...
I'm happy, since I moved, I'm happy to agree with Jimmy's amendment.
Yep.
Can I just ask that we do get like a report back to know you or around budget advice services?
Yeah, and what we might also do is invite you to, or invite all councillors to the session that we were looking at on the sort of structural changes that are happening.
Yeah, I think it'd be really useful. So when it comes to the next sector of community funding round, we can have a consistent approach across all of the budget advice services, rather than just having them come in.
That might be useful from these guys to start with, and then we'll get you some information. Apologies, Phil. So you're happy to accept Jimmy's amendment?
Indeed.
Yep.
So, as I indicated, I strongly support both of these applications and the amendment that Jimmy has asked for. Especially in relation to Kingdom Resources, just want to say that a budget it's more than a budget advisory service per se, and that's clear actually in the matrix here. They partner very strongly with other support services, and it's clear that the people now who are going for budget advice are people who've never been in this position before and are in some serious financial difficulties, and the whole purpose of the budget advice is to stop these people falling into poverty. It's very easy to say that central government should pay for all of it, but I think we as a city have had a tradition of actually supporting budget advice and other social agencies like this, and at a time like this we need to continue. There's a lot of strengths with this, particularly for people who, it's quite clear in the report, also are coping with mental health issues. We have special funds around that, I know, but this agency is playing a key part in this whole area, particularly, as Anne indicated, by training others and by partnering strongly with other agencies. So the Kingdom Resources has a long tradition of providing the service, and yes, of course they get some MSD funding, but this is an outreach which actually covers the whole city. It's much wider than Addington, which is their base, and they do need new premises. They need to be able to afford increasing rents, and I'm strongly supporting this application and also the application for Word.
Thank you. I'm absolutely in favour of these today, and I'd like to point out to councillors that once this is done, we're going to have only $21,000 left in our Metropolitan Discretionary Fund, with still months to go. And to remind everyone that we had a unanimous decision around the table last year to put extra grant funding in our draft annual plan, and then at the last minute we decided not to. That would have given us an extra $750,000 across the city, way less than many other things that we're giving private grants for private individuals and developers. Every time we get these applications, we recognise how many organisations in our city do amazing work with our communities and how valuable that is, and how many volunteer hours that's extra is able to be got from that funding. The fact that we have decided as a council not to do that after a full unanimous decision is incredibly disappointing, and I really hope that our communities are able to submit a long-term plan and say, actually, that's not good enough, and that we need to be able to support our communities better.
I guess my plea would be let's assist our communities by funding what is hugely proactive. So if we look at the top 5 issues for those coming to Mayor's welfare: electricity, rent arrears, bond rates, and medical. So these are the fundamentals, and people are being are being put in situations where they have to choose what is it going to be this week. You know, food, power, whatever. These are the things that we, you and I, around the table, wouldn't think we need to worry about, I suspect. So we can have a debate all day over whose responsibility it is. We could argue technically, actually it is the government's, but in the meantime, some people still need the skills and a bit of guidance over decision making, and I think this is actually a good investment. Please let's not turn it again into a custody battle between is it central or local government. Let's just get onto it and assist people in the meantime.
Why are amendment particular the word, the event? Because you can see we review their numbers, you know. Back to 4 years ago, 2014, there only 8,000 people. But 2 years ago, they increased to 12,000 people. And this year, there were another 18,000 people. That's amazing. We always emphasize this city, you know, city of opportunity. We welcome the people to come to our city, you know, their idea, their contribution. It's good opportunity for us to create a good kind of good image, uplift the profile of Christchurch. So I don't think so, you know, to increase $5,000 is a lot. And also the 18,000 people in here, consumption, social well-being, you know, this huge benefit to the city. So that's why amendment is one. Thank you.
Jimmy, can I put the motion?
No, I'd like to.
Sorry, Anne.
Is it too late to make another amendment? Are we beyond that point?
If you haven't spoken yet, you can make an amendment.
Oh, well, there you go. I'd like to increase the amount that we give to Kingdom to 230,000 for what they asked for.
That would leave us with only 10,000 left.
Yep,
in our
I know.
first 3 months.
No.
If she's got a seconder.
Who seconded?
Do you want
All right.
And moving the amendment, I would accept, say, an increase of 5,000.
Five.
I think what Vicky's saying is 25 might fly.
All right then. Done. Yep. Would you like more?
Only because I feel like I'm being bullied by Phil. He's going to punch me if I say no.
Yeah. I did want to say something further because I actually think that this is more than just giving a handout to people. This is actually training them and giving them skills. And I think that we want that to happen so that people can be empowered not to fall into the traps that we've been talking about. So I think they offer a hugely important thing to our community, and I think we should give them as much as we can.
I think, I'm not comfortable with raising the funding towards this group. We've got other budget advice services in the city that we've heard are struggling who possibly could use our support. And if they come back next week for 20,000 or 25,000, then what are we going to do? So, I think it would be really important to just get an understanding of the services that currently exist, how they're being funded and what their needs are. And I was happy to accept reluctantly a one-off grant for the amount that was suggested, but I'm certainly not in favour of increasing it. There were so many groups that do work in our community supporting people in need that we rejected through our Strengthening Communities Fund because we said that they were getting funding from central government. And now today we're turning around and making a decision for just one of those groups without any understanding of what those other ones may be, and that makes me very uncomfortable. So I don't want to criticise the work that this group do, but there is a lot of good work that happens in our city with people who need help and support. And I just think, having a bit more of a strategic think around how we do that before increasing the funding is a better way to go. We've just heard that one of the groups that was closing down is no longer closing down. So actually this group's demands should be reducing, not increasing. So I don't know why we would increase the funding based on this from the staff recommendation. I think we also just need to be mindful that, and again, it's not a criticism of the group, but there's a lot of religious budgeteering advice services in our city, but there's, I think, only one that does it that's not non-religious. So, I think we do need to think about that and our policies. So we're in debate. So, I think we just need to be about. We need to make sure strategically that we're reaching the people that need the help, and that for some people they may not choose to go to a religious provider. So, it's just, for me, we need to get that strategic piece of work done, and I won't support an increase.
Okay, is there any more debate? Because what I'm intending to do, just so you're aware, is put these two, I'll put them separately so people can vote separately. If the grant of 25,000 to Kingdom Resources is lost, I'll put it back at 20, okay? Just so you know what you're voting on. Yeah? Yes, I'll foreshadow 20 so that we don't run the risk of losing it altogether because they desperately need it. Yep.
Could I just make a brief point of reply, please?
No, because there might be other there might be other people who want to speak, so you would be closing the debate if you did that. So I've got Dion, Jamie and Tim.
Yeah, I'm actually just had another quick look through the staff reports, and they're actually pretty good. I'm actually comfortable.
Amazing.
There are some that I read and I go, oh gosh, and you've got to dig around and find other stuff. But anyway, taken me off track. Thanks, Vicky. What can I call you? The chair?
You can call me whatever you like. Just get on with the speech.
I'm just signalling that I'm more comfortable staying with the two recommendations from the staff, the $20,000. We do have quite a few more months to go, and there will be other people that will require money from this discretionary response fund. So that's where I'm signalling. And I just want to say that I do know that I have heard of the Kingdom Resources Limited stuff, and this is not anything to do with religion. This is to do with people needing support. Thank you, Dion.
Absolutely. So after Dion was
Jamie.
Jimmy, was it? No, who's spoken? Jamie. Sorry, fancy confusing you two.
regarding to the Metro Discretionary Response Fund amendments, all I'll say on this, and I'll keep it really brief, I'm going to be voting against both amendments, not because I don't disagree with the sentiment. I do. I think they do great work. But the one thing I've learned on my time in council is that the unexpected will occur. You don't know what you don't know. And the other thing that I know is that our staff do a really good job of getting to understand these organisations. We all mean very, have best intentions around this table, but we don't get up close and personal at a grassroots level with these organisations like the staff do. I think there needs to be an element of trust in governance, and I think that they play, a very difficult game trying to allocate the finite resources that we have to some very good organisations. So it's an art, not a science, and I think that we need to back our staff, and based on backing our staff and the good work that they do, also based with the fact that we've got a number of months coming up where the unexpected will almost certainly arise, I'm going to stay with the staff recommendation on this.
Okay, now I'm only going to let you speak once, Anne. No, I'm only going to let anybody speak once. Tim.
Thank you. I actually oddly think there's a connection between these two. I read an article recently of some of the most successful people in the world, and these 8 people said one thing that sets them apart and made them successful was reading, reading, reading. What they all do is for about 80% of the day they read, whether it's in their chosen field of expertise. Some of them felt it's irrelevant what they read, they just read. So I do think that there is a connection between these two, and I will support them both.
Okay, thank you. Aaron, have you spoken? I have a feeling you have. He hasn't? Oh, I haven't. I just felt like you had. Sorry, Aaron, go for it. Sorry, Aaron. Go for it, mate.
I was asked a question by
you go for it.
And I
go
answered.
for it. I'm wrong. Speaking. Go for it. You've used up a minute now.
Thank you, Tim, for pointing out where I go wrong. I want to learn to read. So listening to the debate, I'm no longer happy to be the seconder. Happy to be the seconder now that it's changed, because like Jamie had pointed out, and Sarah, that we've got bugger all money left. And it's nearly 4 months, actually, if you include this month. We're less than halfway through. So I prefer the original staff recommendation. I generally always trust the staff in these reports. They work closely with these groups, and they give us a figure for a reason, because they've done a whole lot of research on how much money they don't have to spend, and also how well they know the organisations and where their other funding's coming from. So I've never had much cause to ever doubt their recommendations, and on this case I'll go back to the original. So I'll remove my name from being the seconder because it's changed.
Thanks, Aaron. So have we got a seconder for the 25 to both? Glenn? Okay, so can we put the amendments first, and then we'll come to the original ones, okay, by way of foreshadowed further amendments. Okay, so the first one, so it's now, Councillor Clearwater, Councillor Livingston, and so we'll put them both together. Any problem with that?
Which one first?
The 25 for both of them. Are you happy that they both go together? Put them separate? Okay, put them separate. Okay, the 25 towards the word, I'll put that. Those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? No. Can we just have a show of hands, guys? If you're in favour, put your hand up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And what's that going to be? 8 again? Oh no, there's a couple away. And so if you're opposed? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Whoa. Okay, carried by 8 to 7. Is that what you got, Joe? Yes. Right, okay. And the second one, 25 to Kingdom Resources Trust. Can we put the 25k first? Those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed? No. I think it's lost, but can we have a show of hands? Those in favour, please put up your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Is that what you get? Is that 7? Those opposed? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Right, that one's lost. Can I put now the 20k, which is moved by Sarah and seconded by Aaron, to Kingdom Resources? Can I put that? Those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Carried. Right, okay, thank you. I think we've dealt with that clause.